It is late afternoon now. The light comes low through the west window of my sitting room, and the wedding quilt lies across my knees the way it has for 61 years. Folded twice the way I was taught, so the stitching does not strain at the corners. I'm 80 years old. My hands know where to find the square near the bottom left without my eyes helping. A scrap of grey wool, no bigger than my palm, sewn in by my own hand the winter after my husband died. Not during the wedding, not in any of the years between, only after. There is something inside that square that I have never spoken aloud. Not to my children, not to my sister, not to the bishop who sat at my husband's deathbed and prayed over him in the old tongue. 61 years I have kept it. My husband told me something on the night we were married, a thing he had no right to tell me and could not stop himself from telling, and I have been carrying it ever since. My thumb rests on that grey square now, still. If you are here with me tonight in the quiet, I am glad you came. If this speaks to something you have carried yourself, press that subscribe button and stay. There are more memories here, and I share them slowly, the way they deserve to be shared. Leave me a word below, just one, that tells me where you are listening from tonight. I read every one. My name is not one you will find written down anywhere that matters. I grew up in Lancaster County, in a district that no longer exists the way it did then. I was the second daughter of a farmer who kept his feelings the way he kept his tools, oiled, put away, not spoken of. My mother dressed me on the morning of my wedding in her own bedroom, in the grey-blue light before full sunrise, and neither of us said much at all. That was not coldness between us. That was just how we were made. She pinned my prayer cap with the same hands that had pinned it every Sunday of my 19 years. The cedar chest stood open behind us. The room smelled of ironed cloth and the faint sweetness of the beeswax she had rubbed into the chest lid. I could hear the scrape of hairpins against the wooden comb box, a sound I had heard all my life and would not hear again the same way after that day. I looked at my face in the small mirror above the washstand and thought, this is the last morning I will stand here as only my mother's daughter. She did not cry. I did not cry. Her hands came away from the prayer cap, and she stepped back and looked at me the way you look at something you are releasing rather than something you have finished making. That was all. I smoothed the front of my dress once. The cap sat perfectly centred. I did not touch it again. That is how I carry that moment now. Her hands withdrawing, the cap motionless, the mirror holding us both for one breath before she turned to open the door. If this is your first time here with me, welcome. I do not rush these memories. I have held most of them for too long to let them go quickly now. What I share in these videos, I share carefully. If you feel something here that you have felt before in your own life, you are not alone in that. The description below has something I put together for women who carry old silences. Many have told me it helped. I hope it helps you too. The ceremony was held at my father's farm, the way it was always done, 280 people, the long benches, the bishop's voice rising and settling in the old German. I do not remember all of it. What I remember is the moment after. The handshaking done, the community beginning to move toward the supper barn, and me reaching my husband Jonas's side for the first time as his wife. He was standing at the edge of the yard, slightly apart from the moving crowd, his face turned toward the tree line at the far end of the field. Not toward the barn, not toward me. Toward the trees, and whatever was past them. I touched his arm. He turned. He smiled. And Jonas had a good smile, a real one. It had been one of the first things I noticed about him during the singings. But that afternoon, in the churchyard, the smile came without the eyes following it. Something was running underneath the surface of that day in him, and I did not know its name yet. I told myself it was nerves. A man's wedding day is its own kind of weight. He took my hand and we walked toward the barn, and I believed what I told myself. I believed it for about 47 years, I think, give or take. The supper table was long and loud and full of the smell of roasted chicken and warm bread. I sat beside Jonas at the head of the table, and the meal came and went in the way those meals do, passed hand to hand, dish after dish, voices overlapping. His mother Ruth sat 3 seats down from us. I had met her 4 times before the wedding. She was a small woman, neat in her dress, careful with her words. That afternoon she passed every dish to her left, not once toward us. I noticed because I was watching. A new bride watches everything. Only once in that whole meal did Ruth look in my direction. It lasted less than 3 seconds. Her eyes met mine and then dropped to the table, and she did not raise them again. Along the gift table at the wall, someone had brought a pieced quilt, ivory and green, beautiful work. Every woman in the district had signed the border in embroidery thread. Every woman. I found this out later, running my finger along the names. One name was missing. I did not know whose name it was, or why. I only knew the corner of that quilt hung loose from the table's edge, unsigned, like something left deliberately unfinished. That night, I found out it was never about me at all. The families left slowly, the way they always do after a wedding supper. Voices dropping, lanterns bobbing across the yard toward the road, the barn doors drawn shut one by one. Jonas stood at the edge of the porch and shook hands and nodded and said the right things. I stood beside him and did the same. And then there was no one left. Just the 2 of us and the dark yard and the small lamp burning in the Dotty house window across the gravel, left there by my mother-in-law before she went inside. I looked at that window for a moment. One flame, steady. Then Jonas lifted his own lamp from the porch hook and we stepped off together. I counted the steps without meaning to. 23 across the gravel. The stones were cold through the soles of my shoes, and the night was quiet the way October nights in Lancaster County go quiet. Complete, with no softness in it. Jonas walked beside me, but not close. His knuckle was white on the lamp handle. I could see it in the light. I did not reach for his hand. The ordnung had not told me exactly what a wedding night was, but it had told me, in every other way it told you things, that a new wife walks forward. She does not ask sideways questions in the dark. I walked forward. The gravel shifted once under my heel. Then we were at the door. If you have ever been handed something on a night when you were wide open, a night when you had set down every wall you owned because you believed you were finally safe to, then what I am about to tell you, you will understand without me having to explain it. Stay with me. And if someone sent you here tonight, if a friend or a daughter shared this with you, leave me one word below that tells me what it feels like to carry a secret that was never yours to begin with. Just one word. I read them all. And next time, I will tell you what I did with what I was given that night. It took me 31 years to do anything at all. The Dotty House bedroom was small and plain the way those rooms are. Whitewashed walls, a washstand, a wooden chair, a bed with a pieced coverlet folded across the foot. The candle on the washstand had burned down a third of the way. Jonas set his lamp on the floor by the door and did not move to sit beside me. He sat on the edge of the bed, still dressed, his hat still on. I sat in the chair by the washstand and folded my hands in my lap the way my mother had taught me to fold them in church. Not in prayer exactly, but in waiting. The candle flame pulled once in a draught from somewhere. Then it steadied. Then Jonas said, "There was a brother." He did not look at me. He looked at the floor between his beats. The brother's name was Eli, older than Jonas by 6 years. When Jonas was 11 years old, Eli had gone to the bishop with something he had seen their father do, something that the bishop ruled must never be repeated, must never enter the record, must be buried under silence and kept there. Eli had not accepted that ruling. He had said the thing again, outside the bishop's house, to 2 men of the district. The Maiden came within the week, not for leaving, for speaking. Eli had written one letter afterward to Jonas, and their mother had burned it before Jonas could finish reading it. He had memorized 3 sentences before she took it from his hands. He had been carrying those 3 sentences for 22 years, since he was 11 years old, and he could not begin a marriage holding them alone inside him any longer. He recited them now, in the dark, on our wedding night. Once for the boy he had been when he first read them. Once for the man he had become while carrying them. Once for the husband he was asking me to let him be. A man who needed one other person in the world to know. I did not speak. I did not weep. I did not ask what the father had done, and Jonas did not tell me, and I have never asked in all the years since, because some questions are doors you do not open once you understand what lives behind them. I sat in that chair with my hands folded, and I received what he gave me, the way you receive something at a graveside. Not with gratitude exactly, not with resistance, but with a kind of stillness that is its own form of yes. The candle flame bent once more in a draught. Then it went still. Then it bent again. Then it was still. I watched it for a long time after Jonas stopped speaking. That is the last clear thing I remember of that night. I was back in the main house kitchen before 5 in the morning. Ruth was already there, feeding the stove, her back to the door when I came in. She did not turn. She handed me the bread pan over her shoulder without looking at my face, the same way she had not looked at me at the supper table. But I was not the same woman who had sat at that table 12 hours before. I understood now that Ruth's silence was not coldness, it was shame. The particular shame of a mother who burned a letter and has been burning it every day since. I took the bread pan. I turned to the counter. I pressed my hands into the dough, and I kneaded it in silence. And I did not say, "I know about Eli." I did not say his name. I did not say anything at all. Not that morning. Not for 11 years. So I am back where I started. The sitting room, the low afternoon light, the quilt across my knees. That grey wool square near the bottom left corner. I cut it from the sleeve of a letter Jonas had written to Eli and never sent. Found it in the cedar chest the week after Jonas died, folded inside his winter coat. He had written it when he was 34 years old, and never posted it, and never told me it existed. I sewed that square into the quilt the winter of my 69th year, the way you bury someone, with your hands, with silence, with something that will last longer than you will. Eli's name is not in any record I know of, but it is in this quilt, and now it is here, with you. What we are handed on our most open night, that is what we spend our lives either running from or learning to hold. I am done running. The quilt is heavy enough. If this reached something in you tonight, please subscribe and stay close. There is so much more I have not yet said. And I am still here, still remembering, still unfolding what was folded for far too long.